Well, we are almost done with week one of the LCS, with coverage brought to you by Alienware. I'm joined right now by Lost from TSM after, would you say it's a tough weekend, Lost?
Yeah, I mean, easily a tough weekend.
Yeah. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And why don't we go ahead and start off with that CLG match? Now, some of the pundits were saying that perhaps that game was more CLG losing than TSM winning. I'm kind of curious what your assessment is of TSM's performance.
Oh yeah, I mean, after the game, Soren was like, "Yo, guys, we were down like 10K, and we were down so much, and COG had all the tools to win the game for sure." And I mean, we did well in the sense that at least we could win, being that far behind, like punishing their mistakes. But still, we weren't really in a good position from the get-goes, like right off the Herald situation. So I would say, yeah, it was their game to lose, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think it is that's causing so many issues for TSM? Because I think a lot of fans are curious. What's really holding you guys back?
Mm. I think it's a lot of things really. Like if you ask me like what the single issue is for our team, if you ask any of us, I don't think we would be able to tell you the answer in like one one how do you say it? Summarized answer. Like there are a lot of different things we need to work on still. In the sense that like, across the board we're just not looking that great. Mechanic like laning phase and objective setup wise, we're like not top of the table either. I know based off scrims and practice that we are capable of, being good enough to contest for top two, top three, top four. But like the performances we're putting up, definitely not ones we're very proud of. So yeah, it's a lot of issues, I think.
So are you? It sounds like you feel as though the team's performance in these stage games it's actually lower than what you guys are showing in practice and the capabilities of the team outside of these stage games.
Yeah, I think our I mean, in the end all that matters is honestly like what you put up on stage and like during your matches. So like that's should be what we're judged off. But yeah, I do think in practice we yeah, it's just scrims, right?
Yeah.
We play much better, and we're definitely a we know we can be a better team.
And so then there's no. Do you think in the game there's like communication that drops off, like when you guys are in these matches, like there's communication issues, or is it just decision making, people making calls that perhaps don't lead to success? I'm trying to understand kind of what the difference is between what you guys are able to do in scrims and then what actually occurs when you guys get into the game on stage.
I think on stage, the most important thing is probably us not having a unified plan in the game and all knowing our roles in that one plan, like all being on the same page on one play we want to do, and we commit to it, and whether it fails or it succeeds, you can learn based of that, or at least you can salvage it with good play, right? But I think a lot of the times we're just like not we're just not playing cohesively enough as five players with the same vision in mind, and that's causing a lot of issues. And I think that's like definitely a point of pressure for our team right now. And you know, as you can see, we're not the best team right now. We
Yeah.
went 1-2, and very well could have gone 0-3 this week. So yeah.
Uh, what has the experience been like for you laning with Sword Art, especially because he's he's a very, very long established player. I think a lot of people think of you as a newer player. And so I'm kind of curious, have you been learning a lot from him? How much do you guys talk? Like, what is kind of that interaction?
As with like all ball lanes, you start off your year and you just try to like get synergy, right? And Sora's just coming from the LPL. He's played in LMS as well, so it's a completely different region. Everyone's speaking different languages, and he can't probably express his thoughts perfectly. His English is really good, but it's probably like not 100% perfect in the sense of like him conveying his thoughts to words to other people. And that's something like we're trying to work on. We're trying to talk more, communicate more with each other. And I have been learning a lot from Sword Art. Just the way he plays and like thinks about the game and his vision of it is so different. It's so I mean, we've been playing, or like most of the players here have been playing in NA for a long time, all the ball lanes. So yeah, it's definitely like an adjustment period, and we're just trying to find a way to play that both of us are like, yeah, this is how we want to play, you know?
Yeah. Okay, how about the on the drafting side? Because I'm curious what the process looks like for TSM, because I know for some teams it's like coaches make suggestions and then ultimately if a player feels strongly, that's kind of where it goes. Other situations it's like the coach makes the final decision. Maybe you can talk me through like how do you guys go through draft and how does that all work, especially with Bjergsen obviously in the coaching role.
I think yeah, it's pretty dynamic with the way draft works for every team, but for us, it's pretty 50-50. It's like players would want to put in their suggestion for what is best for them, and then the coaching staff tries to either fit that pick into a comp or build around it, or say no, we can't actually pick that. We need to pick something more. How do you say it? Fitting with our 1-2-3 P, or something more stable. So it is pretty half and half, and like the sense of responsibility, because our drafts, I honestly with the way we're playing too, it's just not up to scrap, right? Like no matter the draft, even if you have a terrible draft, you can still put up at least a decent performance or like have some semblance of, you know, you can win the game with a bad draft.
Right.
And but yeah, I think the responsibility kind of falls half and half on both the players and the coaches.
Gotcha. Well, I was watching Medios and Sneaky's co-stream during that series, and they had really good praise for you. I did ask them just for fun because I do this sometimes if they had any questions to send to you.
Sneaky, I'm interviewing Lost in 4 minutes. Do you have a question for him? Yeah, ask him what he thinks about his mid laner building Imperial Mandate, Azir, and Leandry's Corgi.
Yeah, ask him about the builds.
Yeah. Ask him, is Bjergsen fueling these builds? Or is it something that Power Evil's creation?
That's a pretty good clip. I like that.
Well, and so they really liked your build, but they had questions about PoEs, and so I guess they were curious if you had any insight into sort of how obviously he's not the one I'm interviewing, but I'm curious if you have any insight into sort of the build stuff there.
I mean, Tristan or PoE, he's always been kind of the innovator of like a bunch of different builds, like the Nashor's Tooth and stuff like that, and the Roa. So, I mean, I don't know enough about mid lane. All I like know is like what I see and hear from Soren and Tristan themselves, and like they don't see an issue with it. I think Soren, for the most part, is like they talk about builds all the time, and like the Monomune and Leandry's Corki and stuff like that. So I don't think that like impacts the game too much. Obviously, it does have a significant impact on it, but I think there are like larger issues, and whether or not the build is an issue at all is like it just falls like so low on the priority list because you can just see more of the gaps in our gameplay that are like.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not really trying to call out his build. I think it's like one of those things where co-streamers and analysts and people like that disagree on stuff all the time, and so I think just it's fun to get the insight, and hearing from you that they talk, that both Soren and PoE talk a lot about the item build stuff is very interesting and cool to hear. So, other than that, do you feel any pressure? Because obviously, normally week one of the spring split, you're having some issues, and you've got a long period ahead of you for playoffs. But here we've only got about 5 more weeks before playoffs hit. So, is there more pressure, you think, for you guys to... Oh, light turned off. It's okay. Wave your arms. Maybe that'll turn it back on. Power saving.
How to change that one. Let me stand up for a bit.
Oh, there you go. So do you think there's more pressure for you, the team, to figure stuff out, or are you like, we've got time. 5 weeks is a long time?
No, I think there's definitely pressure. I don't think it's external pressure, though. I think it's kind of like, guys, the way we're playing and how we're like playing as a team is not good enough. We need to address our issues, and we need to find solutions to them, like fast, because there are going to be only 6 weeks of season, 3 games each week, and there is pressure. So we need to do better, and we're going to strive to do better, and hopefully find those solutions to those problems that we haven't been able to fix, and there are several. So.
Do you think that the new format, obviously there's a shorter window, But I'm curious if you think, okay, you have three stage games a week, but you have less time to practice. So do you think that the three stage games kind of give you more experience and more opportunities to get better, or is it tough because perhaps there's less opportunity to like practice and review and fix a lot of the stuff?
I mean, this format probably makes it so that the better you are earlier, the more rewarded you are, because this split's results are aggregated to the following split.
Yeah.
So let's say you're like top of the table in spring right now, like straight off the bat, 3-0 in your first week, then you can keep playing more games in a shorter amount of time with that like spike, while other teams are catching up or like they're not up to form. And then this split still matters for the the world standings or the seeding for next split, right?
Right.
So yeah, it does reward being better earlier, and I don't really have an issue with that. I think it's just different to the past LCS splits where it's 10 weeks, right? So yeah, that's just how this split's going to go.
Well, I guess I just mean, obviously I know that it goes into next time or next split, and so that kind of continues on. So I see what you mean, but I also just mean like, okay, in a world where you have to, you guys have to get better.
Yeah.
Under the previous format, it's like, okay, well, you got 4 days of practice every week that you can use that to get better, and then you have the 2 days of on stage. So I don't know if you feel like the team would get better and is going to get better faster in a world where you've got 3 on-stage games, because perhaps those help you more, or if it's going to be hard because you have less practice time in a sense to like really focus in on figuring out what the issues are.
I would say probably I think it actually benefits like a team's skill probably less, because usually your weaknesses are like in your losses are exposed during those match games, and you can't change the way you play like within each match game. That's not how it works. You change it in the following week of practice, or like the following weeks of practice. And since you have less practice, and it's like back to back 3 games per week, you'll have less time to adjust and fix the issues that were made pretty visible to you by other teams, or just by your play in general. So I do think it actually makes it harder for teams to improve. Everyone's going to have a different view on it, but that's my current view on it.
Okay, so switching gears a bit just here at the end of the interview to something that's a little bit more lighthearted, hopefully. How much do you pay attention to like the TSM subreddit or Twitter or any of that stuff? Do you avoid all of it, especially whenever you guys are going through a tough time?
I mean, half of the time I'm like just not looking at social media whatsoever. But other half, I still use Twitter, and people will send like really kind messages, just like, yo, keep your head up, bro. Things are not great right now, and I really appreciate all the people who do that. And there's also your fair share of like, hey, bro, every time you play the game, my eyes bleed. And I'm like, yeah, that really blows, man. Sorry about that.
Well, I guess my question is, are you familiar with like the TSM LOST meme that I've seen posted around a lot? Because I'm curious how you feel about it. Because obviously, it's. I remember even on one of the coasters I was watching, it might have been also the Sneaky Medios one. They were like, he should change his name to One, so that it could just be TSM One. So I'm curious how much you see these memes and if you think they're funny or if it's like, I don't know what you think.
Dude, it's a bad joke, but it's kind of XD, and like sometimes bad jokes are kind of funny because of how bad they are.
Right.
And before, when I was playing on Fox, like people made Fox LOST jokes too. My name is just kind of like, if you're losing, of course, TSM just lost. So, I mean, it's a meme. So be it. Keep making jokes. If you're having fun with it, all good, bro.
Okay, very good. Well, is there anything you want to say to any of the fans out there?
I guess I would like to just mention those who do send really positive messages, and it really does help a lot, because as a pro player, you're playing a lot, man. You're playing you start your day at like 10, and then you finish your day at like 7 something after dinner, and you play solo queue until like 11, like so many days a week, and that's a grind. And then just like at least seeing a message like, hey man, I know you guys put in a lot of hard work, even if the results don't show up, keep your head up, and I hope like you guys do really well in the future. Just a small message like that really goes a long way. So, shout out to those guys and those fans who really are, supportive and super kind. So yeah, I appreciate you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Lost, for the interview and for such great answers. I really do appreciate it. And looking forward to seeing what TSM can do over the next couple of weeks and how quickly you guys can catch up to where I'm sure you want to be. So thank you again for the interview. And for everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS right here on my YouTube channel. Hey, thanks so much for watching that interview. I got to say, just covering the games from home has made me feel a little thin lately, is maybe the best way to put it. But you know what is even thinner than how I feel? The amazing laptops that Alienware makes. I'm talking about the M15, M17. These things are beautiful. They are fantastic to be able to throw onto your backpack and bring with you to work or school or any number of different places. Get one now so that when we all start traveling and going places again, you'll be ready. You can go find those over at alienware.com/Travis, and Travis10OFF is the code that you'll use to save 10% off your order.